Demon's Cruel Desire by Celeste King.
Is your mind still in the gutter, darling?
That depends on who's asking, love.
You know who, and you know why, Samara.
My feeling bold, are we, Eroth?
There's only so much of those outfits of yours that I can take, so why don't we wrap this up and find somewhere a bit more private?
If you want to know what's about to happen between me and this big boy, you won't find that kind of spice on YouTube.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get the unabridged, uncut version of the content on this channel.
And use code YouTube30 for 30% off.
Yeah, don't forget the discount. Come on, darling, we're done here.
You're listening to Celeste King's Demon's Cruel Desire.
Chapter 1. Dagon. The raucous noise of mindless chatter and cheering fills the air around me. I'm surrounded by other demons engaging in boisterous celebrations, their cheers echoing off the cavernous walls of the grand hall. This used to be my scene, a loud, wild party where I could drown out the day's crap with drink and laughter. But now, as I stand among the reveling crowd, a glass of dark liquor untouched in my hand, I feel like an outsider in my own skin. The laughter around me seems hollow, the smiles forced. With every shout and cheer, a small part of me recoils further. Once these gatherings were a refuge, a place where I could lose myself in the sheer joy of existence and camaraderie. Now, they are a reminder of what I've lost, or perhaps what I had never truly possessed. Hey, Dagon, lighten up, will ya? A burly demon with horns curling like smoke shouts over to me, clapping me on the shoulder with a thud. I try to smile, to echo the jests tossed my way by familiar faces, but each attempt feels more strained than the last. The weight of my memories, once locked deep within the recesses of my mind, now presses against the confines I've built for them. Each cheer from the crowd echoes like the screams from my past, each laugh a mockery of the pain I once dealt with such cold efficiency. I was a monster, and the memories are back as if to taunt me, to drag me back to the demon I used to be. They called me a war hero, but there's nothing heroic about the shell I've become. Hey, Dagon, a soft voice calls. I turn my head toward the voice, momentarily forgetting that this new version of me exists. A matron with long, lithe legs, her wings tinted the soft hue of dying embers, playfully makes her way through the crowd and settles onto my lap. Her presence is almost enough to distract me from the brooding thoughts in my mind. For a fleeting moment, as she laughs and places a flirtatious kiss on my cheek, I almost slip back into the persona that once defined me at these parties, the carefree reveler, the life of the gathering. Dagon, aren't you having fun? She giggles, sensing my stiffness. Her hand reaches out, boldly tracing the curve of my horns. I flinch, resisting the urge to hurt her. Instead, I grab her wrist, noting the contrast of the size of my massive warrior hands around hers. What's going on behind those crimson eyes? She asks, suggestively settling in my lap, making me unconsciously stiffen. I've been on the King's Council since I could remember. Well, no. Now I can remember a time before it, since we came to Galmaleth. Still, I hold a great position among the demon court, so it's no wonder this matron has chosen me for her knight, even if I might not take her, something I'd never considered before. Yet ever since the discovery of Asmodeus's weakening powers and the existence of Arasak, the memories of who I am have been slamming back with force. I was an interrogator, a torturer, something that had been wiped from my memory in Asmodes's reign on Galmaleth. As his powers weakened, so did the magic that had taken our memories in the Great War. It's nothing, I murmur, my voice barely audible over the din. It's just memories. But it's a mask, and as her touch lingers, a stark, unbidden image flashes through my mind. A dimly lit room, the sharp scent of fear, a figure begging for mercy that I would not grant. My muscles tense, my grip on the glass tightening until it's a miracle it does not shatter. I shove her away with more force than I intend, her surprised yelp lost in the cacophony of the party. The room spins slightly as I stand, the faces around me blurring into indistinct shapes as my heart pounds in my ears. I need to escape, to breathe, to not be enveloped by the darkness that threatens to consume me. Without a word, I turn and make my way through the crowd, their faces turning from surprise to confusion as I push past. As I leave the warmth and light of the party behind, stepping into the cool, shadowed pathways that lead to the training grounds, the noise of the celebration dims. Here, in the solitude of the night, I can confront the chaos within, one swing of the blade at a time. I've been mostly keeping to myself these days, as the violent intensity of the flashbacks doesn't give me even a moment's peace. I push my long black hair out of my face as I throw myself into physically pushing down the surge of violence the flashback has left me with. The muffled chaos of the party still echoes in the distance, and part of me longs to be that guy again, the one everyone on Galmaleth wanted to be. I used to thrive in social settings, but now I've been reduced to this shell, half the demon I once was. I can't seem to reconcile the two halves of myself. It's as if both sides are always at war with each other. Ever since the fragmented memories of my time during the Great War began to surface, I can't seem to find any of the joy in life that I used to. Each vivid memory consumes me, throwing me back into the gruesomeness of the monster I was, and it reminds me of who I could still become. I find myself at the training arena, the clang of metal and the grunts from other demons training barely registering as I pick up a weighted training sword. The familiar grip feels cold and alien in my hand, a stark contrast to the warmth of the revelry I left behind. I start swinging, each stroke slicing through the air, each impact against the training dummy a futile attempt to silence the echoes of my past. A bold demon steps to me with arrogant smile on his face. The simmering rage that courses through me surfaces, and I have to push out the darkened edges of my tunneled vision. When he comes into focus, I take great joy in showing him that boasting doesn't win wars. Not when he lands on his ass before me in mere minutes. He sulks off, murmuring something about me needing to lighten up, but it makes no difference to me. As I resume my training, each memory stands as a fresh image in my mind. The gory reality of my life is a reminder of the monster that still lives within me, and as of right now, I'm trying to keep that side restrained.
Chapter 2. Kalista. The streets are dark as I walk home. I'm sure to keep my pace brisk, watching the straggling few unbothered matrons and demons moving about in the late of night. My heart races as I pass by, not daring to make contact. Ever since Asmodeus returned from Arasak, he's allowed humans to work for their freedom. We're no longer imprisoned and forced to sit in the dungeons, especially now that the Queen of Galmaleth is a human herself. But if a demon sees a human that they want, they are free to take them. It's because of this that I keep my head down and my steps purposeful. I'm not scared of them, but I'm aware that I'm at the bottom of the hierarchy. Demons don't typically think highly of humans, but my black hair and violet eyes have garnered me more than just a second look a time or two before, and I'll be damned if I'm some demon's slave. I dart into a narrow alleyway, my footsteps echoing against the damp cobblestones. The flickering of the torches that light the streets cast long shadows, making the alley seem even more foreboding. I clutch the strap of my bag closer to my chest, the contents rattling softly within. Suddenly, a shadow detaches itself from the darkness ahead. My breath catches in my throat as a tall figure steps into the dim light, a demon, unmistakably so, with horns curving back from his forehead and eyes that glow a menacing red in the dark. His gaze locks onto mine, a snarl curling his lips as he bares his teeth. Quite late for a human to be wandering alone, don't you think? His voice is like gravel, harsh and threatening. He steps closer, his towering frame blocking any path of escape. And here you are, all alone, vulnerable. I can do whatever the hell I want to you. I stop in my tracks, fear mixing with a defiant anger that stirs deep within me. The streets are free for all, I reply, my voice steadier now, emboldened by indignation. As decreed by Asmodeus himself. Free? Perhaps, but empty streets mean no witnesses, no one to hear you scream. He growls, advancing with deliberate, menacing steps. And you, my dear, have caught my interest. Despite my racing heart, I lift my chin, meeting his gaze with a fiery one of my own. Try it then, I challenge, my voice laced with a daring that I partially use to mask my nervousness. See what happens. He pauses, seemingly taken aback by my audacity. His smirk fades into a more malicious sneer. A brave little human, he muses darkly. This will be enjoyable. Backing away, I glance frantically around, searching for something, anything to use as a weapon. My eyes catch sight of a small obsidian plant pot by the door of a nearby shop, ornamental but solid. He notices my fleeting glance and lets out a dark chuckle. Do you think you can escape me? How amusing! I give him a smirk that drips in sarcasm as if to silently say, watch me. The dark amusement that dances in his eyes is laced with the promise of violence, and while he hasn't touched me yet, my luck is sure to run out if I don't act quickly. The crimson glow from his eyes intensifies, casting an eerie, flickering light, as if he's a predator locking in on his prey. His towering figure looms larger with each step, and the air around us thickens as if his mere presence sucks the oxygen from the space between us. You're either quite brave or quite foolish, he murmurs, his voice a low rumble that vibrates through the damp cobblestones beneath my feet. His breath is hot, tinged with the faint stench of sulphur that invades my senses and turns my stomach. The snarl remains on his lips, revealing elongated fangs designed to instill fear and inflict pain. Despite the threat he poses, there's a magnetic allure to his presence. His form is powerfully built, with broad shoulders and a strong, defined torso that hint at immense strength. His features are striking, sharp angles and a chiseled jawline framed by sleek, black horns that enhance his intimidating yet captivating appearance. It's disarming to find myself noting his attractiveness in such a threatening encounter. I stand my ground, though my heart pounds against my ribs, frantically desperate to escape its cage. His shadow envelops me, the coldness of his demonic aura brushing against my skin. I can almost feel the weight of his gaze, heavy with dark intentions, as he leans closer, his face just inches from mine. What do you plan to do, little human? His hand reaches out, hand extended, moving slowly towards my face as if to caress it. He instead runs a finger down my jawline, making me shiver despite the threat looming greater with every chance I give him to get close to me. I tilt my head slightly, a smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth despite the pounding fear. Brave enough to stand here, foolish enough to think you'd recognise the damn difference. I shoot back, my voice laced with a snarky edge. In that moment, caught between fear and a strange fascination, I brace myself for his next move. I see it before it happens, the flash of decision that crosses his eyes. My heart is threatening to fly out of my chest as I wait for the right moment. As he lunges toward me, I make my move. I dart to the side, grab the obsidian pot, and swing with all my might. It connects with a heavy thud against his head, and he staggers back, momentarily stunned by the force of the blow. He crumbles to the ground, angrily grabbing his head. Seizing the moment, I sprint from the alley, my legs pumping as I weave through the streets. I don't stop running until I reach the safety of my small, run-down shack, slamming the door shut behind me and sliding the bolt into place. Leaning against the door, I try to catch my breath, my body shaking from the terrifying encounter. Tonight was a narrow escape, a stark reminder of the peril I live in every day. As I sink to the floor, the reality of my situation settles in deeper. I'm free, but freedom in this demon-dominated world is always under threat. I need a plan, not just to survive, but to live without the constant shadow of fear.
Chapter 3. Dagon. I cannot escape the memory of the woman from the other night. Even as I dwell in the shadows of Galameth's streets, her image haunts me, a vivid contrast to the dark recesses of my mind. Compelled by an inescapable pull, I track her down, her unique aura flaring like a beacon in the muted energies engulfing the city. Here, amidst the cacophony of haggling demons and cloaked figures, I find myself watching her. Her hair, dark as a karasu's wing, cascades over her shoulders, stark against her golden tan skin that seems to defy the dim pallor of the shadowed market. Her eyes, a piercing violet, capture and reflect the scant light, cutting through the gloom with an intensity that is almost palpable. She moves with a confidence that belies her unassuming stature, standing at average height for a human, with a curvy form that commands a subtle yet undeniable presence. She confronts a demon merchant over the quality of mystic herbs, her voice firm, her stance unyielding. "These aren't the freshest you have, and we both know it," she declares, her eyes narrowing into slits of calculated defiance that brook no argument. But when the demon doesn't budge, she turns away, nearly bumping into a group of children behind her. Her laughter, though rich and filling the air with warmth, carries an edge when she joins in to play with the group. Her face, guarded and stern in her dealings, lights up with an unexpected joy that softens the harsh lines of survival etched into her features, drawing even the most reserved onlookers into a momentary reprieve from the city's oppressive atmosphere. The more I observe her, the deeper my fascination grows. Each defiant gesture, each spirited exchange, weaves a complex tapestry of allure around her. There is a haunting beauty in her assertiveness, a melancholic grace in her resilience that ensnares my thoughts. I am compelled to unravel her mysteries, to understand the fires that fuel her indomitable spirit. From the shadows I mutter to myself, my voice a low rumble swallowed by the market's incessant noise. This woman, I start, my gaze fixed on her elusive form, is an enigma, cloaked in the deceptive simplicity of human flesh. Curiosity strikes me. What secrets do you harbor? What dark strength fuels your fearless heart? As I linger in the shadows, a part of me yearns to get closer to her, to step into the light and confront her. I wrestle with consuming intrigue, my curiosity driving me to watch this woman as she masters the streets of Galmaleth with a boldness that holds my attention while making me irate. Who the hell does she think she is? With each calculated move she makes, the allure of her only grows stronger. She is an enigma, drawing me deeper to her. This dark-haired woman with stormy violet eyes unknowingly commands my attention. Emerging from the shadows, I finally decide to confront her, the allure of her presence too potent to ignore any longer. As I step into the light, other demons, recognizing my fearsomely earned reputation, hastily make way, their whispers fading into a respectful hush. I block her path and her violet eyes immediately narrow, her irritation palpable and unmasked. Her apparent disdain ignites something within me, a dark thrill. "Why did you run off like that?" I snarl, berating her for slipping away as she did the night before, igniting a heated exchange between us. The air is thick with tension, and I relish the sense that she might truly despise me. Good. Let her hate me. There's a ferocity in her that demands an outlet, and I've decided I am it. She whirls around, her eyes blazing with fury. "Are you flipping serious?" She spits back, her voice trembling with anger. Her words slice through the charged atmosphere, every syllable dripping with contempt. She stands defiant, her words sharp as she matches my fury with her own. "What the hell gives you the right to track me down like some animal?" She snaps, her voice a fiery lance. "I'll show you who." Driven by a sudden flicker of rage, I reach out and grasp her slender neck, not tight enough to choke, but sufficient enough to cut off her heated protests. "You're coming with me. I'm taking you," I declare with cold impulsivity, the icy tone of my voice leaving no room for negotiation. Her reaction is swift and fiery, her cheeks turning a deep shade of violet as she claws desperately at my hand. "I'm not your damn property. I don't even know you," she screeches with fierce indignation, her struggle against my grip underlining each word. "Yes, you do," I say, flexing my fingers along the fragility of her neck. Her eyes widen. "It's Dagon, since you seem to misunderstand who you're talking to." "Dagon," she mutters, her tone holding none of the respect I'm accustomed to. "Your place. Now," I sneer, releasing my hands from her neck and moving it wrap around her arm as I push her forward. She walks with petulance, leading us to a filthy shack. I maintain my hold, unyielding, as I force her to collect her meager belongings. Her vehement protests fill the air, sharp and incessant, but they are merely background noise to me. I'm utterly captivated by her fearless spirit. Through the tense journey back to my mansion, she continues to fight every step of the way. Her spirit does not falter. If anything, it seems to strengthen with each passing moment. "This doesn't end here," she vows, her voice thick with fury and resolve. "I will not let you chain me down." Once we arrive, I show her the space she'll occupy. It's far from a prison, elegantly furnished, yet the luxury does nothing to soften her stance. She surveys her new surroundings with a critical eye, her mind undoubtedly racing through every possible escape route. It's bigger in size than that crappy shack she called home. I'm doing her a favor. "It's temporary," she asserts yet again, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a storm of emotions. "I'll find a way out of here, and when I do, you'll regret ever bringing me here." I smirk, intrigued and provoked by her spirit. "We'll see about that," I retort casually, my own challenge laid bare. Her courage and refusal to cower before me only serve to fuel my interest further. There's something about her resilience, her fierce independence, that draws me in. The violence in me that grows darker with every forsaken flashback I'm forced to endure latches on to my interest in her. "What's your name?" I ask as I step to her, backing her into a wall. She juts out her chin with defiance, her gaze never breaking mine. "I asked you a question. What is your name?" I ask again, this time with my hand encircling her neck. She swallows and I'm drawn to the way her golden skin stands out against the gray of mine. "Kalista," she finally says, giving in, but I'm not foolish enough to think I've won.
Chapter 4. Kalista. My dreams are filled with images of Dagon's chiseled body. Each morning I wake flushed and flustered, scolding myself for having such thoughts, fueling my growing disdain for him. I throw myself into chores, sweeping and dusting, and hoping to escape Dagon's every call. Despite my efforts to remain invisible, our paths intersect more often than I'd like. One afternoon, as I'm trimming a particularly sinister-looking plant, Dagon appears at the garden entrance, his figure casting a long shadow across the overgrown path. "You're taking to the comforts of your cage quite well, Kalista," he remarks coldly, his voice echoing slightly in the open air. I straighten up, shears in hand, and meet his gaze with a glare. "Comfort is the last thing I feel in this damn prison. You may control where I sleep, but don't flatter yourself thinking you control my thoughts or my will." He steps closer, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "Yet here you are, my unwilling guest, pruning my gardens as if they were your own." "I'd rather prune your head from your damn shoulders." Dagon's voice is low and menacing. "Such fire, it's quite entertaining." He reaches out as if to touch me, and I snap the shears shut with a sharp click, my frustration boiling over. He snatches his hand back with a dark laugh. Our fingers brush accidentally as I shoved the shears into his hand, ready to storm off, sending an unexpected jolt through me. I suppress it quickly, stepping back. "I am no one's plaything," I hiss, my voice laced with venom. I storm off without a second look and lock myself in my room, seething with the intensity of my hatred for him. The next morning, I stand by the window, letting my gaze drift out outside with a furrowed brow. Despite the darkness that hangs over Galmolith, the world outside seems mockingly vibrant. I curse everything I see, channeling my anger and hatred for Dagon into everything from the karasu fluttering in the sky to the suru scampering in the courtyard below. Each creature, each blade of grass seems an affront, a reminder of the freedom I cannot taste. A harsh knock at the door startles me. Reluctantly, I open it, and there stands Dagon, his presence as imposing as the dark stone walls that encase us. Enjoying the view, Kalista? Or perhaps you're plotting which part of the garden to poison first? His mocking condescension instantly ignites my temper. I step closer, my voice low and steady with barely contained rage. I was imagining how much brighter this place might be without your shadow darkening it. He raises an eyebrow, his gaze assessing. Your spirit remains unbroken, admirable, yet futile. You need to accept your new reality. I accept nothing, I snap back. Not this house, not these grounds, and certainly not you. Dagon's eyes narrow slightly, and for a moment there is a flicker of something like respect in his gaze. That defiance is going to be your undoing. His crimson eyes peer into me, sweeping down my body with an intrusive intensity that makes me shudder. He leaves before I can muster another retort, the echo of his footsteps a taunting reminder of his control. I slam the door shut, leaning against it as a mixture of frustration and something perilously close to exhilaration pulses through me. But beneath the surface, a dangerous curiosity grows, a desire to understand the enigmatic and complex creature who has turned my life into a mockery for his twisted enjoyment. During the day, I channel my energy into finding potential escape routes. I study the rotations of the guards, memorize the layout of the house, and search for any hidden passageways, but all my efforts have proven fruitless so far. As I walk through the courtyard, ostensibly enjoying the fresh air, my gaze sweeps over the landscape with the keen eye of a captive plotting her freedom. Each step carries me past flower beds and fountains, but my mind is elsewhere, mapping exit points and noting the patrol timings of the guards. The clashing sound of steel draws my attention across the courtyard where Dagon is training with a sword. His movements, fluid and precise, are filled with deadly intent. He wields his sword with an expert's grace, his shirt discarded beside him, revealing gleaming muscles and a tapestry of scars that speak of countless battles. I pause, hidden in the shadow of a tall column, stealing quick glances as I watch him move. Every swing and parry is a testament to his power, the very power he holds over me. Suddenly he stops, straightening as he senses my presence. He turns, fixing me with a piercing gaze as a slow, wicked smirk spreads across his face. Enjoying the view, Kalista? Or are you studying, hoping to find a weakness? His voice carries across the courtyard, rough and taunting. I step out from the shadows, refusing to appear intimidated. I don't need to study you to know your weaknesses, Dagon. Arrogance is the most obvious one. He laughs, a harsh, mocking sound that echoes off the stone walls. Brave words for someone who's more prisoner than guest. What's your plan? Going to try and take me down with a pair of garden shears? His words sting. The venom in them is piercing, yet I stand my ground, my voice steady. Maybe I am. Seeing the brief flicker of annoyance in his eyes, I push harder. Or maybe you're all sword and no substance, Dagon. It must be exhausting, puffing yourself up all day just to scare a girl. His smile vanishes, replaced by a tightened jaw and a darkening gaze. Dagon sets his sword down with a clang against the stone. His eyes never leave mine as he covers the ground in a few strides, stepping into my space with an aggression that makes me scramble back until my back meets the pillar. The intensity of his gaze makes me squirm, and my heart races as he leans in, his cheek brushing mine. His voice is low and rumbles against my ear as he whispers, "Keep pushing me, Kalista, and you might not like what you unleash, but then maybe that's what you're hoping for." His tone is a blend of challenge and a strange, probing curiosity. He raises his head to meet my eyes, and I feel a surge of reckless courage. I'm not afraid of you, Dagon. I've dealt with demons far less frightening than you pretend to be. He steps back and picks up his sword again, as his smirk returns. We'll see about that then, won't we? I let out a deep sigh, drowning in uncertainty as I watch him turn away, unable to help the pull this brooding demon seems to have on me.
Chapter 5. Dagon. One day, as I walk through my door, I'm overcome with shock to find my brother, Tagar, casually lounging on the couch. He looks up at me with a smirk, opening his arms wide. "Hello, brother," he says, his voice cruelly laced with contempt. All at once, memories come slamming back, each one with striking force. A younger me looking up at him, mimicking his every move, desperate for his nod of approval. A muddy battlefield under a gray sky, the bloody clash of swords ringing in my ears. Tagar, a few steps ahead, his blade swinging with lethal precision. The cold dismissal in his eyes the day I told him I was leaving for a quieter life. His voice thick with scorn. "You'll regret this, Dagon. You're not one of them." It's almost overwhelming, the speed at which it all rushes back. The past, once neatly compartmentalized, now bursts forth, unbidden and uncontrollable, as if Tagar's mere presence has shattered the barriers I've painstakingly built over the years. I didn't know that travel between Galmaleth and Arasak was allowed these days. Yet here he is, bold as can be, his presence consuming the entirety of my space, my peace. His sudden arrival instantly puts me on edge. I can feel the furrow of my brow as my face tenses, my fists balling at my sides. We were once so close, but that was before. We've since grown apart ever since I decided to pursue a peaceful life. He looks down on it as if it's beneath him. As if right on cue, I watch as his eyes roam across my living room. "What a cushy setup you have here, Dagon," he sneers, his voice dripping with disdain. His gaze is sharp and critical, stripping away the tranquility I've built around myself, turning it into something trivial, something laughable. His words, meant to provoke, hang in the air like a challenge. I struggle to maintain composure, to keep the rising anger from coloring my response. "It's peaceful," I manage to say, my voice steady but cold. "Something you've never understood, Tagar." He laughs, a harsh sound that echoes too loudly in the stillness of my once serene living room. "Peaceful, or just plain dull?" he retorts. I clench my fists, struggling to keep my anger at bay. He's always known exactly how to provoke me, a skill perfected since our youth. Each snide comment he throws my way feels like a hook, pulling me back into a past I've desperately tried to leave behind. I attempt to remain composed, every muscle tensed, silently pleading for him to just leave. But when I refuse to engage with his provocations, Tagar shifts his tactics. He reclines, a dark spark in his eyes, and begins to gloriously reminisce about our brutal exploits in the war, reveling in the violent memories. "Don't you ever think of the war, Dagon? How we tortured and maimed. How we're killed in cold blood with our bare hands." His voice isn't just wistful, it's hungry, as if he's savoring each bloody image as it passes through his mind. My temper frays as these intrusive memories claw their way into my thoughts uninvited. I remember, too, the chaos, the fear, the rush of power. But these aren't memories I want to relive. They're dark chapters I've attempted to seal away, wounds I've struggled to heal. "I don't care to remember those times," I say tightly, my voice strained with the effort to keep my emotions in check. Tagar chuckles darkly, pleased by my discomfort. "But those were our glory days, brother," he taunts, his eyes gleaming maliciously. "Or have you become too weak, too entangled in your peaceful drapes to recall the exquisite thrill of conquest?" This moment encapsulates the internal battle I face, caught between who I was and who I strive to be, illustrating the profound impact of familial ties and personal history on my identity and emotional state. As Tagar revels in the blood-soaked memories, each word sharpens the images I fought so hard to bury. His voice, dripping with a sick love for the chaos, slices through the calm I've crafted. Despite my resistance, the memories break through. Flashes of fire, the clash of steel, the cries of the fallen. It's not just the past that returns. It's the adrenaline, the fear, the raw power, all flooding back, overwhelming my senses. With each memory he dredges up, the walls I've constructed to separate my past from my present seem to shudder, letting the old darkness seep through. I can almost smell the metallic tang of the blood that spilled so freely, coating the ground in the crimson realities of war and torture. Feeling my control slip, I suddenly stand. "I need a moment," I mutter abruptly, my voice a thin veil over the turmoil inside. I can't trust myself to stay, to listen to Tagar pull up more horrors that thrill him and torment me. As much as I want to deny it, Tagar's unexpected visit has blasted open the box of traumatic memories I fought so damn hard to keep sealed. The lid to that dark place wasn't as secure as I believed, and now, with a few cruel words, he's thrown it wide open, letting all the darkest moments spill out. I escape to the sanctuary of my kitchen, leaning heavily against the counter. My hands grip the edge, knuckles white, as I struggle to regain some semblance of composure. I close my eyes, taking deep, measured breaths, trying to replace the images of war with the quiet peace of my current life. But the echoes of Tagar's words linger, a dark shadow over my hard-won tranquility. Why the hell does he still have this power over me? Why can his presence and his words resurrect the past I've tried so diligently to bury? It's a troubling thought, one that shakes the foundation of the new life I've built. I realize that healing isn't just about escaping the past. It's about confronting and controlling it, something I still need to master. With breaths, I attempt to close the box again, to secure the lid tighter than before. But now I know it's there, still filled with unresolved shadows, waiting just beneath the surface. As I step away, holding tight to a thin sliver of composure I managed to conjure, I turn back toward the living room, watching him just out of sight as his brooding expression casts judgment on my life. The pain and the torture he's so fond of reminiscing about is digging its claws in me, trying hard to cling to the darkness that seems to be taking hold, bit by bit.
Chapter 6. Kalista. As I'm doing my usual rounds, trying to figure out my escape, I hear a voice I haven't heard before. My curiosity is piqued as I get closer to the living room. I can feel the tension that radiates there. I watch from the shadows as Dagon and another demon seem locked in a verbal standoff. He's shorter, but just as muscular, with obsidian eyes and crimson skin. His horns are shorter and more curved, and his blood-red hair is shoulder-length like Dagon's, but that's the extent of their similarities. Dagon keeps flexing his fingers and balling his fists, visibly pissed about the words coming from the other demon's mouth. My heart races as I walk into the room, and Dagon meets my eyes. "Who is this?" I ask casually, noting the way his face tenses. Dagon turns, eyeing me darkly before his answers. "Kalista, this is Tagar, my brother." His voice is heavy with reluctance, and I get the feeling he and Tagar have nothing in common. "Or Dagon, you didn't tell me you got a pet." Tagar's sinister voice drips with contempt. I stiffen, my cheeks reddening as I watch, waiting for Dagon to react. My heart hammers against my chest as a rush of fury rises in me. Dagon's jaw clenches, his eyes flickering with a silent rage that I've come to recognize. Tagar leans back, a smirk playing on his lips, clearly enjoying the discomfort he's causing. "Pet, huh?" I shoot back, my voice laced with venom. That's funny, coming from someone who seems more like a parasite in his own brother's house. Tagar's smirk fades slightly, replaced by a flash of surprise. Dagon's eyes meet mine, a warning swirling in their depths. But screw that. I'm not going to stand here and let this asshole tear at him with his words. "What's the matter, Tagar?" I continue, stepping closer, my voice low and steady. Not used to someone calling you out on your stuff? Tagar stands up, his height meant to intimidate, but I hold my ground. The air between us crackles with tension, a dark, heavy blanket that threatens to suffocate. But I'm not backing down. Dagon moves, a subtle shift, positioning himself slightly in front of me, a silent protector. But I don't need protecting, not from the likes of him. Tagar's sneer fades and he takes a step back as he smooths the front of his shirt, an arrogant smile playing on his lips. You're right. Let's not ruin a delightful evening. After all, we have so much to catch up on, don't we, brother? The way he says brother is like a venomous hiss. I can almost see the words slither through the air, each syllable laden with toxicity. Dagon's muscles tense again, and I feel a surge of protectiveness. It irks me to see Dagon like this, his usual confidence undercut by Tagar's presence. We move to the dining room, a beautifully set table before us, which now feels more like a battlefield than a place for a meal. As we settle around the dining table, the air thick with unspoken tensions, Tagar casually shifts the conversation towards his recent exploits, but with a dark twist that immediately sets the tone for the evening. His voice is smooth, almost disarming, but the content of his stories is anything but. He proceeds to recount incidents of brutal conflicts and violent wartime acts, each story more harrowing than the last. His descriptions are vivid, not shying away from the gruesome details of bloodshed and betrayal. With each word, he seems to relish the discomfort he's creating, watching us closely for our reactions. I try to keep a composed face, but inside, I'm recoiling. The graphic details make my stomach churn, and I catch Dagon's eye across the table, his expression stony. It's clear that Tagar's words are intended to provoke, to remind Dagon of a darkness he has tried to leave behind. Really, brother, surely you remember the way the enemy begged us for mercy as blood spilled from their bodies. Tagar continues, his voice tinged with a disturbing enthusiasm. But, of course, there was none to be given. I feel a cold shudder pass through me, and something inside me snaps. The room feels colder and darker, as if Tagar's tales are seeping into the walls themselves. How can he speak of such horrors with a smile? I wonder, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anger. Enough, I interject sharply, unable to contain my disgust. We get it, Tagar. You're tough and merciless, but you're also sitting at a dinner table, not a war council. There's no need for such graphic storytelling here. Tagar's eyes flick to me, a flash of surprise at my interruption, before his smirk widens. Oh, my apologies, pet. I see that not everyone has the stomach for the realities of power and survival. I'm no one's damn pet. I scowl at the slur, drawing a scoff from Tagar. As the dinner progresses, I find myself watching Dagon more than I listen to Tagar. The way he maintains his composure, the subtle signs of his discomfort, it all stirs a protective fury within me. Only I get to push his buttons like that. As Tagar continues with his macabre tales, the atmosphere at the table grows heavier. Each story is punctuated by his laughter. His eyes alight with a dark glee as he describes the chaos and carnage of his exploits. I find myself despising him more with every minute, not just for his stories, but for the way he's corrupting the space between Dagon and me, a space already fraught with our own complexities. As the meal ends and the plates are cleared, the weight of Tagar's stories lingers like a bad taste. Dagon and I might share a mutual enemy in Tagar, but it does nothing to soften the hard edges of our own relationship. Dagon remains silent, his face a mask of composed neutrality, but the tightness in his posture betrays him. He's usually more than capable of giving back as good as he gets in our verbal skirmishes. But tonight, his brother's morbid tales have left him withdrawn, lost in thought. Our interactions are defined by conflict, each of us pushing the other in a continual battle of wits and wills. Yet, seeing him subdued in this way, affected so deeply by Tagar's words, stirs an unfamiliar, uncomfortable empathy within me. As I reflect on the evening, I find myself both wary and oddly intrigued by this realization, uncertain of what, if anything, I want to do about it.
Chapter 7. Dagon. Tagar is still lurking around, leering with judgmental eyes that light up when he's messing with me. He's a constant presence that weighs on my ability to rein in my simmering temper. He knows how much to poke and prod to get under my skin, and he's just looming around, as if he belongs here. My anger is so repressed, slowly building up as the darkness swirls within me. I find myself taking it out on Kalista more than normal. Every creak of the floorboard seems to amplify my irritation as I stalk through the house. The house is steeped in a tense, heavy atmosphere, each day darker and more oppressive than the last. Tagar's taunts are like whispers from shadows, constant and chilling, pushing my simmering temper closer to the edge. It's a storm waiting to burst, and today, it finds an unexpected trigger. I'm walking down the narrow hallway, lost in a brooding swirl of thoughts, when Kalista suddenly rounds the corner. She's moving quickly, perhaps too caught up in her own frustrations, and collides with me with a surprising force. The impact sends a shock through me, igniting an immediate, fiery anger. Without thinking, my hand shoots out, gripping her throat. It's a reflex, dark and dangerous. "Watch where you're going." I snap, my voice a low growl, fingers pressing just enough to remind her of the power I hold. Her eyes widen, not with fear, but with burning defiance. She grabs at my wrist, her grip firm, but she doesn't try to pull away. Instead, she meets my gaze head-on, her voice steady. "You think this frightens me, Dagon? This petulant outburst?" I flex my fingers around her neck, relishing in the way her throat bobs as she swallows. Her hand is warm as she holds tight to my wrist, not to overpower me, not that she could, but in a refusal to back down. And for a moment, I'm taken aback. Her resilience, her refusal to cower, only fuels the fire within me. "You know nothing of what I can do, Kalista," I growl, getting closer to her face. "Do not presume to test my limits." Her heaving breaths are warm on my face. I'm close enough to kiss her, to dominate her here in this damn hallway. Her response is a fierce whisper, her breath warm against my hand. "And you should not presume that I'll be so easily broken." She swallows again, those violet eyes, and by the 7 I'm so wound up that I can't help the low rumble that escapes my throat. The intensity of the moment hangs between us, thick and charged. Slowly I loosen my grip, not out of pity, but out of a grudging respect for her spirit. She doesn't flinch or step back, maintaining eye contact that speaks of battles yet to come. We both know this is far from over. This collision, a simple mishap in the hall, has peeled back another layer of our tumultuous coexistence, revealing the raw, seething layers beneath. As she turns and walks away, the air still vibrating with the echo of our confrontation, I'm left with a mixture of frustration and a newfound wariness. The atmosphere in the old house is charged, almost electric, as if the very air crackles with the tension between us. "Why the hell do you persist in this rebellion?" I demand, unwilling to let her just walk away. My voice is low and menacing. The question is more of an accusation, a challenge to her relentless opposition. Kalista's defiance, sharp and unyielding, cuts through the silence of the dimly lit corridor where we confront each other. She turns around and meets my gaze steadily, her voice equally firm. "Because someone has to stand up to your stuff, Dagon. Someone has to show you that your darkness doesn't control anyone but yourself." Her words ignite something fierce and dark within me. In a swift motion, driven by the force of everything I've been holding back, I press her hard into the wall. My hand finds its way back to her throat, in a display of the control she keeps testing. My other hand pins her arm above her head, and I lean in close, my hips pressing against hers, a deliberate assertion of dominance. "You think you're the one to teach me lessons?" I hiss into her ear, my breath hot against her skin. The proximity, the tension, it's palpable, and I can feel a subtle shift in her, a response she might not even admit to herself. Kalista's breath catches, her body tenses and stills under my hold, yet there's an undeniable, though perhaps unwilling responsiveness in the way her eyes flicker, the slight quickening of her breath. You won't break me, she manages, her voice a breathy whisper that only fuels the dark fire within me. Break you? I chuckle darkly, tightening my grip ever so slightly. No, Kalista. I want you to see the power, to understand it. You provoke this darkness within me, challenging the very nature I strive to control. I don't want to break you. I correct her quietly, my tone menacing. I want to bend you, to mold you into submission. I want you to acknowledge that I'm the one in control. I'm breathing heavily, the heat of my frustration mingling with the cold air. Every shallow breath she takes fuels my need to see her submit, to break that fiery spirit of hers. I can't freaking take this anymore, Kalista, I snarl, my voice low and dangerous, a direct reflection of the storm raging inside me. Her eyes spark with defiance, that familiar fire that challenges me. You think you can just force me? She spits back, her voice laced with contempt. Yes, I hiss back, my grip tightening, my body pushing more insistently against hers. I'm done with your defiance. You're going to learn who holds the power here. Her breathing becomes ragged, her chest heaving against mine. I can feel the fight in her, but I can also sense her resolve starting to crumble. This isn't just about desire. It's about proving a point, about establishing dominance in the most primal way possible. Leaning closer, I let my lips brush against her ear, my words a dark promise. Stop fighting me. It's inevitable. You will submit to me. The whisper is not gentle. It's a command, an inevitable conclusion drawn in the dark ink of my will. I pull back to look her in the eyes, ensuring she sees the uncompromising determination in mine. My heart is racing against my chest, and my fingers flex tighter around her throat. I'm in control, and she's about to find out firsthand what that defiance has triggered in me.
Chapter 8. Kalista. Dagon grabs me, his fingers tangling in my hair so I have no way to free myself from his hold. Let go! I scream, my hands working fervently to pry his fingers loose. He merely laughs at my efforts. At 6'5", he's nearly a foot taller than me. I don't stand a chance, and I know, but the tension between us is palpable. It becomes even more obvious when he tears my dress off my shoulders. My heart hammers as he throws me over his knee. I'm terrified, but more excited than I've ever been. Dagon, please don't! His hand connects sharply with my rear. The sound echoes through the quiet room, a sudden burst of noise that hangs in the air for a moment before fading. The sting of impact flares hotly against my skin, surprising and shocking. Embarrassment, fury, and something strange and electrifying surges through me like a wild river. I gasp, trying to squirm away, but his arm is like iron around my waist. He's too strong, far too strong. Dagon! I protest again, my voice weak and trembling with indignation. He laughs, a deep rolling rumble that resonates against my body, where he holds me securely. His hand hovers above my bare skin for a second, and then falls again with another sharp smack. Now, Kalista, he rumbles low in his chest after another spank resonates in the quiet room. Learn your lesson. His voice is stern, yet filled with warm amusement that belies his harsh treatment. I grit my teeth against the sting, fighting back both tears and, oddly enough, a hint of sheer exhilaration. Panting, I ball my hands into fists by my side, nails digging into my palms as I try to absorb the pain that licks up my spine like wildfire. Then suddenly his hand softens, rubbing gentle circles on the reddened skin of my bottom with a surprising tenderness. The coarse pad of his thumb glides over the inflamed area, letting soothing warmth seep deeper into me. Why? I start to ask breathlessly, but he cuts me off with another hard swat that sends jolts of electricity singing through me. Silence, Dagon orders, his voice a gravelly baritone that sends shivers down my spine. I bite back a whimper, pressing my face into the rough fabric of his breeches. His fingers continue to caress my heated flesh, tracing the contours of my lower body with a sinfully sensual touch that is as confusing as it is arousing. His hold on my waist tightens, pinning me securely against his solid frame. You've been a bad girl, Kalista. He purrs in my ear, his breath hot against my neck. His fingers tug gently on my hair, lifting my face toward him. I can feel the hum of his laughter vibrating against my skin. Again, his hand falls sharply, and I cry out as pleasure pain shoots through me, stealing away my breath. My body arches instinctively against him, gasps escaping between clenched teeth. He chuckles darkly at my reaction. The spanks continue rhythmically for a time, each one erupting fresh waves of prickling warmth across my raw backside. And then suddenly they stop, and are replaced with slow, soothing strokes from his hand once more. Dagon, I manage to groan. What are you? But before the sentence can be completed, another sharp smack meets its target, causing an involuntary squeal to echo around us. His fingers, calloused and firm, glide over my reddened skin again, as if he's trying to memorize every inch of its scorching heat. I shudder under his touch, my body quivering in anticipation, or perhaps fear. I don't know. Relax, Dagon murmurs, his voice lulling me into a state of submissive serenity. I feel myself melting under his touch, my tensed muscles slowly uncoiling, the pain blending into something more bearable, something bordering on pleasure. Oh man, just when it was getting good. Find the spicy, unabridged version over at worldsofprotheka.com. Using code YouTube30 will yield you extra savings on all the details. Back to the story. There's silence in the dim room, save for our ragged breaths gradually slowing down to match each other's pace. My cheek rests against the solid plane of his chest, listening to the rhythmic beating of his heart reverberating through me. It's an oddly comforting sound amidst all that we've just experienced. His fingers trace lazy circles on my bare skin as we lie entwined in each other's arms. The intimacy is jarring after such fierce passion, but not unwelcome. His deep baritone breaks the silence by murmuring words into my hair that are meant just for me. From the depths of the darkness of Protheka,
or clawing up from the realms of fantasy,
come the most fearsome beasts you have ever seen.
These monsters are done watching from the shadows.
Now, as they step into the light, something unexpected grips them.
Something even they can't fight off.
Love.
Vampires.
Demons.
Dark elves.
Gods.
Minotaurs. Creatures of light and dark.
They will protect their mates.
Do whatever needs to be done.
Morally grey heroes who will burn the world to protect the women who love them.
10 audiobooks.
Fall into over 60 hours of fantasy romance.
20 ebooks.
Over 1 million words of these brutes who will protect their women.
Even if they might destroy themselves in the process.
Get the immersive Protheka Fantasy Romance Bundle.
For 80% off, right now, dive into Protheka at a once-in-a-lifetime discount.
The first bundle to offer both ebooks and audiobooks on worldsofprotheka.com. Protheka's magic is eternal, and this romantasy bundle will make it endless. Chapter 9. Kalista. Tagar is still lingering around the mansion, provoking Dagon. His presence makes me uneasy. Despite this, I'm finding my attention drawn more and more to Dagon as the days pass. After the other night, I'm starting to see beyond the outbursts of anger. I've never been scared of him, but there was a chaotic element to the way the anger simmered readily beneath the surface. My hand absently comes to my neck, thinking about the physicality of his anger. I've been thrown up against the wall with his hand around my throat more times than I can count in my short time being taken by him. I should probably fear him, fear the tightly wound sense of control, knowing it will inevitably snap. His rages haven't changed in intensity, and while I'm strangely more compassionate, I still don't shy away from his verbal abuse, giving it right back to him as good as I take it. You just going to stand there and glare? I taunt him as he towers over me after yet another outburst, his eyes burning with a storm. I could ask you the same damn thing, he snaps back, his tone laced with irritation and something akin to admiration. I know that my defiance, my readiness to stand toe-to-toe with him, acts as a necessary release for Dagon. This isn't just about proving my strength. It's about providing him an outlet that I secretly know he craves. Admittedly, it's thrilling, making my heart race and my skin tingle with adrenaline. In these moments, where I match Dagon's intensity, I discover a fierce part of myself that thrives in toxicity. Facing Dagon's fury, I not only confront his darkness but also embrace my own. Does this make you feel alive? I challenge him, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. It's what keeps me sane, he admits, his voice a low growl. The admission, raw and honest, cements the brutal truth of our connection. He glares as he stalks away, leaving me reeling from the conflict. But everything considered, it's the late nights that reveal the most to me. When sleep eludes us, we find ourselves in the kitchen, our battle wounds laid bare in the flickering candlelight. At first, our encounters are tense and silent, neither of us willing to speak or make the first move towards a semblance of camaraderie. The stillness hangs heavy, filled with the echoes of our earlier clashes. The only sounds are the soft crackles from the candle and the occasional shift of our feet on the cold tile floor. We're like two generals, momentarily off the battlefield, unsure of how to interact without the familiar backdrop of war. One day, the silence begins to thaw as we start to seek each other out. It starts with a shared glance, a mutual sigh, and an involuntary shift toward each other. There's a tacit acknowledgement in these small gestures, a recognition of the exhaustion and raw emotion that our fiery exchanges often mask. The first words are forced, each syllable heavy with the effort of civility. Still standing then? I ask, my voice low, the words slicing through the quiet. Seems so, Dagon replies curtly, his eyes not quite meeting mine. Not for lack of trying on either side. The tension lingers, but slowly the conversation begins to flow. Still measured, still cautious, but gaining a reluctant momentum. We dance around deeper topics, instead discussing the mundane, the safe. And yet, each exchange is laced with an undercurrent of something more, a hesitant probing of boundaries and a testing of waters. These late-night kitchen sessions become our unspoken truce, a sanctuary from the rage and fervour of the day. Here, in the quiet intimacy of forced politeness and shared vulnerabilities, we start to see each other not just as adversaries, but as complex individuals. The kitchen becomes our reluctant meeting ground, night after night, each encounter marked not by warmth, but by a cold mutual acknowledgement of each other's presence. Here we're stripped of our defences and illuminated by the soft candlelight that we begin to truly understand each other. The space is dimly lit, the only light flickering inconsistently overhead, casting long, dancing shadows that seem almost sinister. We sit across from each other, the table between us laden with the invisible weight of our silent battles and unspoken histories. Tonight, the silence feels especially charged, dense with the residual tension of our past interactions. I break it, not out of a desire for conversation, but more from a restless discomfort that demands some sort of vocal acknowledgement. Can't sleep either. The words come out more accusatory than I intend, reflecting my own irritation more than curiosity about his state. Dagon shifts in his seat, his chair scraping slightly against the tile floor, a sound that grates in the quiet. He looks up, eyes narrowing slightly, clearly annoyed by the disturbance. Does it look like I'm sleeping? His tone is edged, conveying more than just sleeplessness. There's a deeper, raw irritation there, perhaps with the situation, or maybe just with the fact that we are forced into this shared inconvenience of the night. I let the question and its barbed delivery hang in the air, unanswered. Instead, I tear at the edge of a napkin, the repetitive action a small outlet for my own frustrations. The tearing sound seems overly loud in the tense silence that follows his retort. A few moments pass before he speaks again, his voice softer but still carrying an undercurrent of that earlier annoyance. Do you think it'll ever get better? It's almost as if he's speaking to himself, the question rhetorical, his gaze fixed on some unseen point beyond the kitchen window. I consider his words, the heaviness of their implication, and my response is equally subdued. Maybe it will, or maybe we'll just become better at pretending it has. He nods, almost imperceptibly, and for a moment there's a flicker of something like understanding, or perhaps resignation, in his eyes. We lapse back into silence, each retreating into our own thoughts. The conversation, if it can be called that, is strained and awkward, a reflection of the complex and uneasy dynamic between us. It's clear that while the night forces us into proximity, the day's resentments linger, unresolved and potent. Tonight's exchange, though brief and fraught with tension, marks a slight shift. It's not warmth or a breakthrough in our relationship, but rather an acknowledgement of our shared reality, uncomfortable and unwelcome as it may be. The recognition is there, unspoken but palpable, that we are both trapped in this cycle of restless nights and uneasy interactions, each grappling with our own demons in the oppressive quiet of the kitchen.
Chapter 10. Dagon. I've been drawn to Kalista from the moment I saw her dip into that alley that first night. I can't explain what it is about her that compels me to start opening up to her. Maybe it's the way she listens to me without judgment in our late-night meetings in the kitchen. Or maybe it's the way she anchors me when my temper and trauma rise to the surface and threaten to pull me under. Whatever the reason, I find myself slowly revealing more about my blood-soaked past than I ever have with another living soul. The moment I start to speak, I'm acutely aware of the way those violet eyes take me in. The confessions begin to spill out, transforming the kitchen into a sanctuary where shadows from my past seem less daunting. Kalista's silence during these moments isn't empty, but filled with an empathy that wraps around me, a silent support strengthening me against the ghosts of my memories. This unexpected catharsis, driven by Kalista's serene acceptance, challenges the walls I've built around myself. Each story shared not only lightens my burden, but also subtly stitches the frayed edges of my spirit back together. In her presence, I am both vulnerable and strong, haunted yet hopeful. One night, I feel the urge to tell her the details of the things I've done. The gory memories of my past linger at the tip of my tongue, and I feel compelled to let her in, to let her see there's nothing redeemable about me. Maybe that's why I tell her. Maybe I want to push her away more than I want to pull her close. As I sit across from Kalista, the shadows of the room seem to creep closer, eager listeners to the horrors I'm about to disclose. The memories I've kept shackled in the darkest corners of my mind begin to break free, each surfacing with vivid, relentless clarity. The first time, I start, my voice rough like gravel. It was in the heat of battle. An enemy warrior stood before me, all snarling rage and swinging steel. I pause, the image so clear I can almost feel the weight of the damp, blood-soaked earth beneath my boots. Our swords clashed, sparks flying, but it ended with my hands, not my blade. My fingers twitch unconsciously, remembering the feel of crushed bone. I grabbed his helmet, twisted, until I swallow hard as the sound of his skull giving way echoes in my mind like a gruesome symphony. Kalista remains silent, her face a mask of moonlit marble, eyes wide, reflecting a morbid fascination and horror. And the screams, I continue, the words tumbling out like dark whispers, the cries of the warriors I captured, tortured for information, their pleas, their sobs. They begged for death long before I granted it. The ghostly echoes of their despair fill the room, and for a moment, I'm back there, in the stench of fear and iron. I look away, focusing on a crack in the wall, but it's no use. Another memory surges forward, unstoppable. There was a medic, I murmur. Young, too young. He stumbled upon a scene of carnage, trying to save those beyond saving. My hand goes to my throat, mimicking the motion I used on him. He looked at me, eyes wide, understanding too late. And as I slit his throat, the life faded from his gaze, leaving nothing but a blank nothingness. A single heavy breath escapes me as I finish, the silence after feeling more oppressive than before. Kalista shifts slightly, her voice a soft, strained whisper. How do you live with those memories, Dagon? I lock eyes with Kalista, the weight of my past igniting a fierce anger that simmers just beneath the surface. Live with them! I snap, my voice laced with venom and pain. They claw at me every damn day, tearing me apart from the inside. There's no living with this. There's only enduring, only surviving what I've become because of them. My words come out as a growl, the trauma manifesting as raw, unbridled fury. But she just listens, her eyes calm and infinitely sad, yet without condemnation. Her quiet acceptance soothes an ache in me I didn't even realize was there until her unspoken forgiveness begins to fill it. You're not recoiling in fear? I ask her, angered that she's listened unflinchingly to me detail the horrors of my past. No, I'm not, she answers evenly, yet there's still an undertone of defiance as she shakes her head. Why? I finally ask, my voice hoarse, almost afraid to hear her answer. Because pain recognizes pain, Dagon, she replies softly, her gaze steady. You're not the only one with horrors, not the only one who's done things, regrettable things. We all have our battles, our crap to face. Her words, simple yet profound, envelop the raw edges of my soul. At that moment I realize that Kalista's strength lies not in overlooking the horrors of my past, but in acknowledging them and seeing beyond them to who I could still become. The silence hangs heavy between us after Kalista's words. The kitchen, dimly lit by the flickering flame of a lone candle, feels like a confessional. Why don't you fear me? I push harder, my voice a low, tortured growl. I need to understand, need to see the crack in her armor. She meets my gaze squarely, unflinching. Fear you? Her voice is steady, but there's a tremor of emotion that betrays her calm exterior. Dagon, fear is a luxury I can't afford. You think I haven't seen what horrors the world holds? I've seen enough to know that fear doesn't keep you safe. Her defiance stirs something within me, a mix of admiration and frustration. I clench my fists, feeling the old urge to smash something beautiful just to witness the breaking. But I resist, focusing instead on her words, her courage. You're not the monster you think you are, she says quietly. There's something about the way she says it, as if she thinks she truly sees me, not the me who threatens her and chokes her, but the me behind the rage. Her words slice through the thick air, sharp and unexpected. I want to laugh, to roar in her face that she's wrong, that I am exactly the monster I seem to be. But the sincerity in her eyes stops me. What if I am? I challenge, my voice barely above a whisper. What if I can't be anything else? Kalista steps closer, her presence bold and unyielded. Then we're all damned anyway.
Chapter 11. Kalista. I can't remember anymore when my days here began. At first they were long and arduous, but as time escapes me, Dagon and I fall into familiar ways. I won't call it a routine, not yet, it's still too new, But since that night in his kitchen, Dagon has been a new demon around me. Gentler? No, never. And the longer I'm here, the less I care when his hands reach for my neck. But there has been a shift, imperceptible to anyone but me. Tagar still looms in and out, his regular disruption the only wrinkle in our day. Even now, Dagon and I lounge near the fountain in his courtyard, wondering how long it will take Tagar to seek us out. We've taken the cool evening air and sound of rushing waters together for a few days. Despite his gruff exterior, I can't deny the visceral pull I feel towards Dagon's chiselled features and sinewy physique. Those smouldering crimson eyes and rugged angles stir an undeniable longing within me. Days turn into weeks, yet every time my eyes meet his body, I feel like I'm seeing him in a new light, or exploring a side of him heretofore obscured from me. He seems less tense, the huge muscles in his neck relaxing as he sits back in his chair and looks calmly over at me. Naturally, we hear a voice, breaking the growing peace budding between us. "Where are you two?" I can feel the shift in the air the moment Tagar swaggers into the courtyard, his lips curled in a sneer. Dagon immediately tenses beside me, the warm camaraderie we've been sharing evaporating like mist. Dagon's whole demeanour shutters closed as Tagar approaches, his eyes hardening to flinty stones. It's like watching a transformation, the gentle soul I've come to know retreating behind an impenetrable wall of thorns. "Brother," Tagar greets with a mocking nod. "I thought I'd pay another visit to your quaint accommodations." His piercing obsidian gaze cuts over to me, pure disdain etched into those harsh features. I bristle, lifting my chin defiantly. After all we've been through, I won't let this brute intimidate me now. "Kalista was just leaving," Dagon growls, his voice lower and more gravelly than I've heard it in weeks. A protectiveness flares up in me, irrational as it may be. I will not be dismissed like some obedient Ergin pup. Not after the bond Dagon and I have forged. "Actually, I'm staying right here," I declare, staring straight into those crimson eyes I've come to cherish. Dagon's jaw tightens, but I can see the faintest crack in his stony facade. Good. I want to draw out that part of him again, the true Dagon I've grown so attached to. "How adorable," Tagar sneers. "You've let this pathetic human get under your skin, baby brother." Dagon releases a low, warning rumble. I step boldly between the two towering demons, unwilling to back down. "Better be careful, Tagar," I taunt, making sure to use his name in a way he can't miss my lack of deference. "Your pathetic human has a mean left hook." "Kalista!" Dagon barks, but I catch the slight twitch at the corner of his lips. He's still in there, my Dagon. I just have to poke and prod him free from this prickly shell. Undeterred, Tagar rakes his gaze over me with a nauseating appraisal. "I could break you over my knee before you landed a single blow, girl." I open my mouth to fire back another scathing retort, but Dagon suddenly grabs my arm in a vice. "That's enough," he rumbles, his tone brokering no argument as he hauls me away from his leering brother. "What did you think you were doing, mouthing off to Tagar like that?" Dagon's voice is a low, dangerous rumble as he rounds on me. "He could snap you in half without blinking, you foolish girl." With a disgusted snort, he whirls and stalks away, leaving me bristling in his wake. The courtyard's cracked flagstones dig into my back, the shadows lengthening as the merciless sun sinks behind the towering ramparts. Dagon's footsteps have barely faded before Tagar's large frame looms over me, blocking out the courtyard light. A shiver of unease ripples through me, but I refuse to show weakness before this bully. "You've got quite a mouth on you for a lowly human," he rumbles, lips twisting. Though I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, living with my wayward brother. I lift my chin, meeting his dark glower head-on. At least I can speak my mind freely. More than can be said for you cowards who only open your traps to kick a demon when he's down. The words are barely past my lips before Tagar's hand lashes out, thick fingers clamping around my throat. In a blink, I'm slammed against the rough stone wall, feet leaving the ground as he effortlessly suspends me by the neck. Taggar's obsidian glare bores into me with sadistic promise, his twisted features exuding menace like a coiled viper. "You've no idea what you're dealing with, girl," he snarls, eyes glittering with malice as I claw futilely at his grip. With a flick of my wrist, I could crush your puny windpipe to dust. Panic claws up my chest as his hold tightens, merciless as a constrictor's coils. Black spots bloom across my vision, distant roaring filling my ears. This is it. I'm going to die at the hands of Dagon's twisted brother. Then, as swiftly as it began, Taggar releases me. I crumple gracelessly to the ground, wheezing and coughing as sweet air floods my lungs once more. Taggar sneers down at my crumpled form with contempt. "That's just a small taste of the pain I could inflict if I wished. Don't think I've forgotten what you bloodless creatures did during the wars, massacring my kin without mercy." He crouches before me, his next words a soft, deadly hiss. "But you may yet prove useful, human. I have a mind to break you down completely, piece by brutal piece. Once you're a snivelling wretch, perhaps my brother will rediscover his true nature as well." Taggar's cruel smile makes my stomach lurch. "Just something to ponder in the sleepless nights ahead, pet." With a final contemptuous glance, he turns and strides away, leaving me trembling and cold on the unforgiving stones. Dagon's going to have one tough decision ahead of him if his brother makes good on his threats.
Chapter 12. Dagon. "Are you sure about this?" I grumble, looking up at the alehouse signage. My brother has no mercy for my foul mood as he shoves me through the wooden doors. "Trust me on this," he smirks, meeting the smoky room with an easy smile. "Call it brotherly love, but I normally wouldn't be caught dead in a dive like this." The smoky tavern assaults my senses with a barrage of harsh laughter, clinking tankards, and the reek of stale bodies. I squeeze my eyes shut, drawing a fortifying breath through my nostrils. Why in the nine hells did I agree to this? Taggar claps a heavy hand on my shoulder, jostling me forward. "This is just what you need, little brother. A night of debauchery to clear that pretty human fog from your brain." I grit my teeth, restraining the urge to shrug off his vice-like grip. "I'm fine," I insist, hoping to convince myself as much as my brother. Taggar looks less than convinced as he pushes me towards a seat at a table. Every breath of stale tavern air has me longing for the crisp, green scent of the courtyard gardens back home, of Kalista's unique floral notes dancing on the breeze as she moves amongst the blooms. Curse that brave, foolish woman and her soul-deep stare for burrowing under my defenses so thoroughly. I should have guarded myself better against her disarming warmth and spirit. "You're quiet over there, Dags," Taggar taunts with a sharp elbow to my ribs. "Don't tell me you're already pining after your little human plaything." A possessive growl rumbles up my throat before I can stop it. I slam it down, nostrils flaring as I turn a withering glare on my insufferable sibling. "She is no mere plaything, brother. You do well to show Kalista more respect." The words are out before I can rein them in. Taggar arches one thick brow, his obsidian eyes glittering with undisguised delight at getting such a rise out of me. "Oh, and here I thought we were going to enjoy a nice evening drowning our sorrows in ale and disconnected flesh." His lip curls in a cruel smirk. "Unless you prefer disconnecting differently with your precious little human." White-hot fury lances through me at the thought of Taggar's hands on Kalista's soft, delicate skin. I lurch to my feet, fully prepared to wipe that vile look off my brother's face with my fists. But a buxom she-demon has already slid into my lap, all cloying perfume and vapid smiles as she trails painted claws down my chest. Now, boys, is that any way to treat a lady?" I meet Taggar's taunting sneer over the demoness's shoulder, hating how easily he can undo me with a few crude words about Kalista. As the she-demon continues her simpering game, I've never felt so utterly removed from my surroundings. The demoness's inane chatter washes over me, my mind still caught in a loop of Kalista's radiant smile, her teasing laughter as she tosses flowers at me in the garden. So lost in the memory, I barely register the hulking shape looming over us until a meaty hand grips my shoulder. "Get your filthy claws off my female, you smirking pig!" a gruff voice snarls. I blink, finally focusing on the brutish demon glowering down with bared fangs. The demoness shrieks, shoving off my lap as her apparent ex rears back his fist. Before I can react, Tagar is on his feet and driving his shoulder into the brute's midsection like a battering ram. They go down in a tornado of flailing limbs and spittle-laced curses. "You want to dance, wretch?" Tagar spits, raining down blows. Should have picked an easier opponent. I aim a warning hand toward my brother. "Tagar, don't! He's not worth the Coven's wrath again." Tagar's fists are a blur of motion, raining down strike after strike on the hapless demon foolish enough to challenge him. I watch in sickening fascination as that scarred face contorts into a rictus of ecstasy, with each sickening crunch of bone and spatter of hot blood. "That's enough, brother!" I bellow over the roar of the tavern crowd, egging them on. "You've made your point." But Tagar is too far gone in his frenzy, savoring the pathetic demon's agonized howls like a fine vintage. With a final brutal crunching of knuckles against the skull, the creature goes limp and still beneath my brother's heaving form. Dead. Of course he had to take it that far. Raucous cheers and jeers erupted from the assembled hellions, putting me instantly on edge. If I don't act fast, this could easily devolve into a full-blown demonic melee, the kind that leaves entire city blocks razed to rubble. Jaw clenched, I surge forward and haul Tagar up by the scruff of his collar, like a misbehaving Urgan pup. His obsidian glare smolders into mine, that sadistic grin still twisting his lips into something vile. "Get a hold of yourself, damn you!" I give him a violent shake, uncaring of who bears witness to such brazen insolence from a younger sibling. "You want the Coven's Archons raining hellfire on us again? Over some pissant tavern brawl?" For a long, tense heartbeat, defiance flares bright in Tagar's onyx eyes. My breath catches in my throat, waiting for the explosion that could ignite this brewing disaster. Then, slowly, blessedly, the berserker haze seems to bleed out of him. Tagar's shoulders slacken as some of the demonic firelight banks in his gaze. With a casual shrug of his shoulders, he tosses me a mocking sneer. "Relax, baby brother. I'm just having a bit of fun for once. Your fun nearly got us both killed. Ah, did you feel that blaze in your veins, brother?" Tagar's eyes shine with dark glee as he claps me on the shoulder. Just like the glory days carving through the ranks of those sniveling humans on Arasak. We were born for battle and conquest. I shrug off his grip, crushing the tiny flicker of excitement that memories of war stir within me. Those days are behind us. I won't return to that path of endless slaughter, no matter how you try to rouse my inner demon. The words have barely left my lips when Tagar's face contorts in a rictus of rage. Shock seizes my lungs as I watch that simmering menace boils to the surface with terrifying swiftness. Cold dread lances down my spine as blazing wrath eclipses his eyes into twin pits of obsidian fury. At that moment, it's all too clear what unholy maelstrom is about to be unleashed upon me.
Chapter 13. Kalista. My body feels antsy knowing that Dagon is out at a bar with Tagar. Finally, I've had enough and managed to sneak out of the house. I walk along the streets of Galmaleth, searching for the demon that complicates my thoughts. As I round a corner, I'm brought to a sharp halt. My hand comes up to my mouth as I see Dagon pulling Tagar back from what looks like a dead demon. My heart pounds against my ribcage, each beat echoing in the eerie silence of Galmoleth's shadowed alleys. The streets, usually buzzing with the clandestine activities of night dwellers, feel ominously vacant tonight, as if the city itself is holding its breath. My footsteps are silent against the pavement, but inside, my mind is a tempest of worry and anger. As I round the corner, the sight that greets me freezes me in place. Dagon, his broad shoulders tense, is holding back Tagar, whose hands are stained a glistening red. My hand flies to my mouth to stifle a gasp. The metallic scent of blood taints the air, thick and suffocating. I stay close to the shadows as I watch, heart sinking, as Dagon's face contorts with conflict. As I peer through the dim light, my breath catches in the back of my throat. Dagon grips Tagar's arm, pulling him away from a dead demon on the ground. The body still twitches slightly, lying crumpled at their feet. It's ridiculous, this surge of protectiveness I feel for Dagon. He's the embodiment of strength and resolve, not someone who needs guarding. Yet, as I watch him confront Tagar, a fierce protectiveness claws at my chest. I want to rush forward, to intervene, to stand by his side, even if he doesn't need or want me there. The muscles in Dagon's back tense under his clothes, a visible indicator of his anger and control. Tagar, caught in his grasp, looks small, almost pitiful, but I know better than to underestimate the danger he poses. This isn't just about a physical threat, it's the potential fallout, I fear. What if this escalates beyond a mere altercation? What if Dagon loses himself to the darkness that swirls so heavily within him? I should stay hidden and remain a silent observer, but every fibre of my being screams for me to act, to prevent this from spiralling into chaos. It's an irrational, burning need to protect Dagon from the repercussions of his own wrath. My hands tremble slightly, not from fear of what might happen to me, but from the overwhelming desire to save him from what he might do. Tagar says something low and harsh, his tone dripping with disdain. Though I can't catch the words, the sneer on his lips speaks volumes. He kicks at the fallen demon, a move that seems to ignite a fire in Dagon. My fingers dig into my palm, nails biting skin, as I fight the urge to run forward, to intervene, to protect Dagon from reverting to a person he no longer wishes to be. Dagon, come back with me to Arasak. You belong there, not here playing house with a human. Tagar's voice carries, laced with venom. Dagon's response is a guttural rebuke, his voice rough with suppressed fury. No, that life is not mine anymore. The resolve in his voice sends a wave of relief through me, but it is short-lived. I slip from the shadows, moving closer to Dagon and his brother, trying to hear the venom that drips from Tagar's voice. Tagar turns his sneer on me, suddenly noticing my presence. You think you can change him? He's a killer, a demon. You're nothing but a plaything to him. There are better women on Arasak, far better than a human. The air thickens with tension. Dagon's reaction is immediate and violent. His fist connects with Tagar's jaw with a sound that cracks through the night like thunder. Tagar stumbles back, surprise etched on his face. As they grapple, my emotions churn. Fear, anger, and that overpowering protective instinct collide within me. I should be terrified, and I know I should run. But instead, I'm wrestling with the urge to dive into the fray, to pull Dagon away, to scream at Tagar for bringing this chaos into our lives. The fight is brutal, a dance of fury and desperation. My feet are rooted to the spot, my body trembling. The man I care about is slipping, drawn into a battle that could very well consume him. Dagon's words hang heavy in the damp air of Galmaleth's night, a deadly promise made through gritted teeth. But words alone fail to quench the fire of rage burning through his veins. With a deafening roar, he lunges forward, tackling Tagar to the ground with the force of his entire body. The ground thuds under them as they crash into the dirt and gravel of the alley. Dagon's hands find Tagar's collar, lifting him slightly before slamming him back down with a brutal force that sends a shockwave of pain through Tagar's body. Dagon's fist, driven by a vortex of protective fury and familial betrayal, crashes into Tagar's face, once, twice, blood splattering with each hit. You think you can come here and insult her? You think you can just spew your venom? Dagon growls, each word punctuated by another fierce punch. She is beyond your reach, beyond your influence, and I will not let you or anyone bring harm to her. Tagar tries to defend himself, his arms weakly blocking his face, but Dagon is relentless. His next blow lands hard against Tagar's jaw. A sickening crack echoes in the empty streets. Tagar's body goes limp for a moment, the fight draining from him under the onslaught. Breathing heavily, Dagon stands, dragging his brother by his shirt front, his eyes burning into his brother's. He throws him against the alley wall, Tagar's head snapping back against the stone. Remember this pain. Dagon seethes, his voice low and menacing. Remember it every time you even think of crossing her path with disrespect. Tagar smiles, his teeth bloodied and sinister looking. My heart races as I realise the depth of the situation. Tagar has no intention of backing down. Dagon's hold on his brother tightens as I watch the recognition flash through his eyes. The darkness is simmering just beneath the surface, and I brace myself for what comes next.
Chapter 14. Dagon. As I move to walk away, Tagar grabs me by the front of my shirt. He gives me an obscene smile as blood coats his teeth. "This isn't over, brother," he taunts, yanking me to him. My heart races as the delicate control I have over the lurking darkness shatters. The line I've been walking blurs as the anger begins to rise. I let out a growl and slam Tagar back against the wall. I'm done holding back and I let go, ready to unleash the depths of my wrath upon him. Tagar's head snaps back against the stone with a sickening crack, but his grin only widens, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. "Come on, Dagon. Show me what you've got," he spits out, his voice dripping with madness and provocation. His words spur the anger in me, and I grab his collar, lifting him slightly, my face inches from his. "You want to see what I've got? You'll regret it," I snarl, the darkness within licking at the edges of my restraint, eager for release. I throw him down the alleyway. He crashes against the ground, scrambles up, and charges at me like a wild animal. We collide as I lunge at him. Punches fly, each one infused with my pent-up rage. Tagar manages a few hits, his nails scraping across my cheek, drawing blood. The pain is sharp, a crimson streak of reality that only feeds my fury. "Is that all, brother?" Tagar laughs maniacally, wiping blood from his lip. I expected more from the mighty Dagon. His taunts echo in my skull, fueling every explosive blow I land on him. "You know nothing," I retort, my voice cold as steel. I catch his fist, twist his arm back, and with a fluid motion, kick him in the chest. He stumbles back, gasping, the impact reverberating through the alley. Tagar recovers, lunging at me with a broken piece of pipe. The metal glints under the dim streetlights as he swings. I dodge smoothly, grabbing his arm and using his momentum to hurl him into the wall. The brick crumbles upon impact, dust clouding around him. "You're insane," I hiss, advancing on him as he struggles to rise, his eyes wild but undeniably fearful now. "I'm what you made me," he retorts, coughing up blood, trying to push himself up. "No, Tagar, you chose this path. And now, I end it," I say, my voice a low rumble of finality. I pin him against the wall, my hand around his throat, squeezing just enough to hold him in place, my other fist raised. "Any last words?" I growl, my anger a palpable force. Tagar smirks, his breath ragged. "Screw you, brother." With a final look into his eyes, a mix of pity and resolve settles over me. I pull back my fist, and with all the force that the darkness and anger provide, I drive it forward and pause hesitantly, my fist stopping before making contact. Tagar slumps against the crumbled wall, defeated yet defiant. His smirk fades into a grimace of pain and frustration. I stand over him, my breath heavy, feeling the weight of every strike I delivered. The alley is silent except for our labored breathing and the distant hum of the nightlife that continues oblivious to the dark showdown that has just unfolded. From the corner of my eye, I see Kalista. She stands at the mouth of the alley, her face pale and eyes wide with shock. There's a helplessness there that twists in my gut. Our eyes meet briefly, and I see the worry, the fear for what I've become in this moment, and what might still come. Turning back to Tagar, I know this needs to end now, once and for all. But as I prepare to deal the final blow, a deep, resonating voice stops me. That's enough. There's no need for more blood. I spin around to see a figure stepping out from the shadows near the bar we had been at earlier. Despite its small stature, the Sazgaroth demon commands the alley with its presence. Its long ears frame a narrow face, and its eyes glow with a red hue. The aura of potent magic is palpable around it, making the air thrum with power. Let me offer an alternative, the demon continues, its voice smooth like velvet but edged with a threat. It gestures gracefully with a slender hand, and with an intricate movement of its fingers, it produces a swirling portal, the edges crackling with dark energy. Send him to Arasak. Let him be someone else's problem, the demon suggests, its gaze piercing into mine. Tagar, hearing this, begins to laugh, though it's laced with desperation. You think banishing me will change anything, brother? You think you won't see me again? Ignoring his taunts, I look back at Kalista, seeking some semblance of approval or at least acceptance. Her expression is unreadable, torn between relief and continued fear. Turning back to the demon, I nod once, decisively. Do it, I say firmly. The demon moves towards Tagar, who tries to scramble away but finds his injuries too debilitating. With a flick of its wrist, spectral chains appear, binding Tagar's arms and legs. He struggles against his bindings, cursing and spitting blood, but it's futile. As the demon drags him towards the portal, Tagar's eyes meet mine, filled with rage and betrayal. This isn't over, Dagon. I'll be back, he seethes. Perhaps, I reply quietly, my voice steady despite the chaotic emotions inside me. But not today. With a final shove, the demon throws Tagar into the portal. The edges of the portal pulse once, twice, and then close with a sound like thunder, leaving a faint smell of ozone in the air. The demon gives me a nod, almost respectful, before it too steps back into the shadows of the bar, disappearing from view. I stand there for a moment, the weight of my actions settling around me like a heavy cloak. I've got the upper hand now, I murmur under my breath, the realization hitting me like a surge of adrenaline. I can be the whole storm, not just the calm or the chaos. It's a raw, powerful acceptance of every shard of my being. Overcoming Tagar, I've not only silenced a ghost from my past, but taken the darkness as my own. An ally, not a captor. My chest heaves as the weight is lifted. The solace in closure from my past settles over me, and I close my eyes, letting out a sigh as the chaos of the darkness I've tried so hard to control begins to calm.
Chapter 15. Kalista. Is it over? I ask tentatively, my body shaking after what I just witnessed. Dagon is still staring at where the portal once was. He murmurs something about control and being the whole storm, but it doesn't make sense. I hesitantly move closer to him, freezing when his body suddenly stiffens. He turns to me, and something flashes across his face. It's as if he just registered that I was here. "What the devil are you doing here?" he roars. I stumble backward as he angrily strides toward me, my heart racing as I lose my footing. His hand locks around my throat, righting me, and I gulp at what I see in his eyes. It's chaotic, it's charged, it's fear mixed with fury. I couldn't just stay home knowing... I start, but his hand squeezes around my throat, effectively silencing me. "You shouldn't be here, Kalista. How did you even manage to sneak out? Damn it!" he yells before staring me in the eyes. Before I know what is happening, he releases my throat. As I'm sputtering, trying to catch my breath, he effortlessly grabs me, throws me over his shoulder, and begins stalking off angrily. "Where are we going?" I shriek, somewhat frightened of what I just saw unleashed on Tagar and uneasy about how effortlessly he seems to have put it back in its box. "Home, where you can be punished." "I'm not a child, Dagon. You can't punish me," I retort, more out of habit than actual fear. "Yes, I can, Kalista," he replies with deadly calm. My stomach flips at the tone of his voice, and I don't say anything back. Dagon growls as he stalks forward, his arm wrapped tightly across the back of my thighs. His anger doesn't subside as we reach the safety of his house. He sets me down roughly, his eyes blazing with a fury that sends a shiver down my spine. His anger fills the space, palpable and raw. As he towers over me, chest heaving with each breath, his voice booms in my ears. "What the hell were you thinking, Kalista?" he thunders, his frustration barreling out unrestrained. "You have no idea what could have happened to you out there." I hold my ground, meeting his gaze squarely, my own anger flaring up in response to his. "I couldn't just stay behind, not knowing if you were safe." I snap back, my voice firm, fueled by a mix of concern and defiance. I had seen too much to simply wait in the shadows, passive and helpless. "Silence!" Dagon's shout slices through the air, but I do not flinch or falter. "You acted like a fool, and fools get killed, Kalista." I stand my ground, matching his energy with defiance. I was thinking about him, and he's pissed because I left. My fists are balled at my side angrily as my eyes track his every move. How dare he presume me a fool? "So what now?" I ask, watching as he stares at me. He paces, his movements a reflection of the storm brewing inside him, then abruptly halts and fixes me with a steely glare. "I can't let this go. I can't have you putting yourself in jeopardy like this. Not when I love you." The admission of love hits hard, but it does not soften the severity of his stance. "Because I love you, I must teach you what fear should have taught you tonight. You will be punished, Kalista. It's the only way I can make sure you never do something this reckless again." His declaration stirs a complex whirl of emotions within me: anger, fear, love. Yet I stand resolute, understanding the gravity of his words, but not cowed by them. "I understand the risks, Dagon, but I won't be sidelined when you're in danger. We need to find a better way to handle this." Dagon's eyes search mine, perhaps looking for a crack in my resolve, but I meet his gaze unwaveringly. This isn't merely about following orders. It's about standing as equals, even in conflict. The tension between us is thick, a testament to the challenges we face together. As he steps closer, the air charged with his next move, I know that this confrontation will shape the foundation of our understanding, for better or worse. Dagon's confession of love is laced with a darkness that reflects his life's harsh realities. His features, though hardened by battles both physical and emotional, momentarily reveal the depth of his fear and vulnerability. But any softness quickly hardens into a resolute, menacing glare. "You think this is merely about protection?" His voice deepens, the edge sharper. "It's about survival, Kalista. Mine, yours. Everything is at stake." There's a chilling certainty in his tone, a reminder of the brutal world he inhabits, where every shadow could be an enemy and every decision is a matter of life or death. "Love doesn't soften the edges of a blade, Kalista. It sharpens them." He steps closer, the air around him almost crackling with a dark energy. "I love you, and that means I must be more ruthless, not less. Because every threat to you is a threat to everything I stand for." His hands are fists at his sides. "I can't allow you to endanger yourself, not out of some misguided sense of involvement or loyalty. If punishing you is the way to drill this lesson deep into your bones, then so be it." His words are cold, delivered with a brutal honesty that chills me to the core. "I am not your hero, Kalista. I am the one who will do whatever it takes to keep you alive. even if it means being the monster in your nightmares. You need to understand the gravity of our reality. Dagon's gaze is unyielding, his stance that of a warrior ready for a relentless battle. At this moment, Dagon embodies the complexity of a being who is both savior and destroyer, his love intertwined with darkness shaped by years of trauma and survival. The duality of his nature makes him unpredictable and, in many ways, more dangerous. He is a man, or rather a demon, driven to the edge, where every act of affection is twinned with a potential act of violence, all in the name of protection. I stand here, staring at him as he pours his soul out in front of me. The coldness of his words and the heat of his anger do nothing to take away the gravity of what he just confessed. So be it.
Chapter 16. Dagon. My heart pounds in my chest as I wait in an uncomfortable silence for my declaration to be acknowledged. Kalista's eyes widen considerably. On any normal day, I'd take into consideration the massive bed behind her, but now all I can see is her. I stare at her, my words hanging over us. I love you. I wait, and the seconds tick by until finally her lips curl into a smile. I love you too, Dagon. The echo of Kalista's response rings through the room, bouncing off the walls and settling within my heart. There's a soft light in her eyes, a tender shimmer that speaks volumes more than any words ever could. She steps towards me then, the distance separating us disappearing as though it never existed, and leaving only a tender intimacy that transcends the physical. Dagon, she whispers my name again, and it sounds like a prayer on her lips, a plea to the gods for some divine intervention. Her hand reaches up to trace the line of my jaw, her touch electrifying, her gaze intense. Each second under her touch feels like an eternity. Kalista, I breathe out, staring into her eyes that are filled with so much love and tenderness. Our love story has been anything but ordinary, with trials and tribulations we've both faced. I take her into my arms, pulling her close against my chest, feeling the rhythm of our hearts beating in sync. Then, I lean down to capture her lips in a passionate kiss. It's a dance between tongues, a battle between hearts. Her hands, once relaxed at her sides, roam to grip my hair and pull me closer. In response, my hands rest upon her slender waist, holding her close against me. The world outside our little bubble doesn't exist. The only thing real is Kalista and I, sharing not just a moment but a lifetime of love in one heartbeat. And then I pull away. Not because I want to. Gods know I don't. But because it's necessary. Because it's part of what we have become. I have to punish you. Her eyes widen right before I tear her clothes off her body and toss her onto the bed. I pry her legs open and lean over her, my eyes drinking in the sight of her. This is your punishment, I say, my voice soft but firm in the silence that follows. Her breath hitches as I trail my fingers down her body, each touch simmering with fevered intention. Each look promises more than mere words can convey. Her gaze meets mine and I see it there, that definitive spark of understanding. This isn't just about retribution. It's a testament to our unyielding bond. Her lips part to say something, but instead, she lets out a gasp. I smirk at her reaction, taking it as an invitation to explore further. I navigate the landscape of her body, leaving no stone unturned, no secret untouched. There's one thing you need to know, I murmur, interlacing our fingers above her head. You're mine, Kalista. The most subtle of nods acknowledge my vow, and the words themselves hang heavy in the air, a permanent imprint of our connection in this universe. And then, with the shared knowledge of our truths humming in the background, we lose ourselves to each other, basking in the glorious union that is us. As we continue down the rabbit hole of our shared desire, there's a wild look in her eyes, something of belonging and surrender together. It inflames me with an untamed longing, a craving that transcends the realms of physical need. "You're mine too, Dagon," she murmurs, her voice barely audible amidst our labored breaths. The words send me over the edge. With no barriers left to break or boundaries to cross, we move against each other, two bodies burning with shared flames. The line separating us blurs to non-existence. It's not just Dagon and Kalista anymore. It's us intertwined in this sacred dance of love and lust. My fingers trace paths down her body as if it were a map to my salvation, and they find their way to her pulsating center. Her body shudders at my touch, a sweet gasp escaping her lips. I grin against her mouth as I return my kisses along the soft contours of her neck. "Dagon," she breathes out, but I am already lost in the rhythm of our bodies. I can feel her building towards that peak. I can feel it within myself too. But now isn't the time. I pull back slightly, just enough to watch her eyelashes flutter close, and that familiar frown creases her forehead. "Beg for it, Kalista," I instruct softly into her ear, as my fingers continue their tantalizing dance over sensitive flesh. She refuses at first, a stubborn streak lighting up those otherwise soft eyes. But eventually, she caves in, her need overcoming her pride. Not that I have any intention of giving in. She won't find release anytime soon. This is her punishment. I'll drive her wild. We know. You want to see all the delicious details happening between our lovers. Unfortunately, this portion of the chapter is too hot for YouTube. Slide over to worldsofprotheka.com and use code YouTube30 for extra savings on all the spiciness. Back to it. Orcs. Gargoyles. Vampires. Ice monsters. Demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.
Chapter 17. Dagon. My mind is chaotic as I recall the fight with Tagar. Now that he's gone, the house feels as if it has found a kind of peace, knowing that his animosity won't be antagonizing me at every turn. With him around, I couldn't think past the anger he evoked in me. The control I had to display took every ounce of my energy, but now it's as if none of that even exists. I pace my room thinking of Kalista and the way she pissed me off with her insubordination. I was too far gone to acknowledge her, but the moment that Sazgaroth demon shoved Tagar's ass back to Arasak, I was engulfed by a fearful fury. Now that she has been punished, and I can think straight again, I've decided that I want her to be my mate. The door creaks open, and there she stands, a disheveled vision in the doorway, her presence pulling at the very core of me. "What are you doing?" Kalista's voice cuts through the silence, rough from sleep, yet sharply curious. "Just thinking," I reply curtly, my voice a low rumble as I stop to look at her. Her eyes, ever probing, search mine for clues, always trying to delve deeper than I'm willing to let anyone. "About?" she presses, stepping into the room with that maddening confidence that both challenges and attracts me. "Things," I mutter vaguely, turning away to gaze out the window. I feel her presence in the room taking me in as I think of last night, her body beneath mine as she begged, her mouth wrapped around me. And it's then I know exactly what I want. In the days that follow, I find myself observing her more closely, noting the way she moves, the slight frown when she's focused, the way her laughter seems to brighten the darkest corners of any room. As I watch, the decision to make her my mate solidifies with each passing moment, yet I hold my tongue. I need to be sure that when I tell her, it's at the perfect moment, under the right circumstances. I want her to understand the seriousness of my intent. I bide my time, the decision burning like a fire within me, waiting for the moment when I can finally let the flames consume us both. We dine under the low flicker of candles, shadows pooling around us. I slide my chair imperceptibly closer to Kalista. "How was your day?" My voice is deep, laced with an inherent darkness. "Full," she replies simply, a note of weariness beneath her satisfaction. I hand her a plate, ensuring our fingers brush. "Your relentless pursuit of perfection," I begin, my tone more an observation than a compliment. "It's compelling, almost consuming." She offers a restrained chuckle, accepting the plate. "Perfectionism is a demanding master." "Indeed," I agree, my gaze piercing through the dim light. "But necessary. We must pursue what is perfect, what is right, what is inevitable." "And what might that be, Dagon?" Her voice is tinged with wariness. "Us," I declare, the word heavy, irrevocable. Her eyes search mine in the shadowed light, measuring the gravity of my words. "That's a dark vision." "It's not a vision," I respond, my voice low and resolute. "It's an inexorable truth. You and me bound together." After a moment she nods, her expression thoughtful yet accepting. "You frame destiny in such stark, inevitable terms." "I do," I admit, the corners of my mouth twitching into a semblance of a smile. "And I trust, in time, you will see it as I do." The faint echo of the day's camaraderie is drowned out by a more possessive, primal drumbeat. Kalista, with her fierce spirit and unyielding courage, has become the center of a storm that rages within me. A storm driven by a need not just to win her heart, but to take it, to dominate the very essence of her being. Later, as the door to my room opens quietly, her figure appears, outlined by the dim candlelight light of the hallway. She steps into my domain, the space where my darkest thoughts twist around the core of my desires. "You've been more intense today," she observes, her tone neutral, her face unreadable in the dim light. I stand, my gaze fixed firmly on her, letting the depth of my intentions weigh heavily in the atmosphere. "You're going to be my mate," I declare, my voice a deep timbre that seems to resonate with the coming darkness. Her eyebrow lifts, a silent question at the bluntness of my words. "You state that as if it's already decided." The defiance in her tone stirs a flutter deep in my belly, and a growl escapes me. "Because it is," I assert, closing the distance between us with slow, deliberate steps. Kalista slowly steps back until her back is pressed against the door. The space around us feels charged, electric. My hand grasps her chin, forcing her violet eyes to look into mine. "I'm not asking, Kalista. You are meant to be mine." She meets my gaze directly, her composure intact. "And if I were to disagree?" "You won't," I say with unwavering conviction. "Because deep down, you feel the pull of this inevitability as strongly as I do. It's not merely attraction, it's a binding force." Her stance is relaxed, but her eyes are alive, sharp, assessing every word. "You assume a lot, Dagon." "I know a lot," I correct her firmly. We're almost chest to chest, and I'm close enough to feel the heaviness of her breathing and watch her chest quickly rise and fall. I know this is right. She pauses, her lips parting slightly as if to contest, but then she closes them, a slight nod acknowledging my point. "You don't leave much room for dissent." I soften slightly, dropping my hand. "It's not about leaving room. It's about seeing the truth. And the truth is, we're inevitable, Kalista." Her eyes lock onto mine, intense and full of life. "You're overwhelming," she admits, but her voice is steady, strong, not weakened, but acknowledging the force of my nature. "That's because my conviction is strong," I reply, my voice lowering to a husky whisper. "I don't just want you. I really need you, and I believe you need this too." She takes a deep breath, then exhales slowly, a small smile curving her lips. "There's no arguing with you, is there?" "Not on this," I agree, a smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. "So, do we understand each other?" "Yes, Dagon," she says, her voice tinged with a newfound warmth, accepting the inevitable not with resignation, but with a quiet acceptance of the passion and certainty I offer. "I understand."
Chapter 18. Kalista. The air is thick with the scent of incense as I stand beside Dagon in the dimly lit chamber, the flicker of torches casting long shadows across the stone walls. His presence is commanding as his large, muscular arms brush against mine. My heart races at the gravity of what I'm promising him today. Me in my entirety. I glance up at Dagon, his features etched with the brooding gruffness that is so much a part of his allure. Despite his propensity to be an asshole, bordering on cruel, my heart thrums with an unyielding affection for him. He's a demon, powerful and feared, and yet, here he stands, ready to bind his life to a human he once thought beneath him. "Are you ready?" he asks. The deep timbre of his voice reverberates in my chest. When he made his declaration that I would be his mate, I was unprepared, thinking that he was going to force me. But the more I turned it over in my head, the more right it felt. I guess in a way I've always belonged to him from the first day he took me. "I'm more than ready," I say with a smile. My voice is husky and low, making him smirk at me, those crimson eyes warming my entire core. We both turn our attention back to the front as the ritual begins. The demons in attendance are chanting something I don't quite understand, and it makes me feel uneasy and very aware of my humanness standing here before them. But with Dagon at my side, a sense of safety settles over me. I glance at him, his towering presence both intimidating and familiar. His dark, brooding eyes are fixed on me, a hint of the storm that always seems to swirl just beneath his surface. I remember the first day he cornered me, the rough way he pressed me up against the wall in his house, his large, commanding hand encircling my throat. He had asked for my name, his voice a low rumble of danger and intrigue. Even now the memory makes me clench my thighs together. As we stand before the ancient demon who presides over our bonding, Dagon shifts slightly, his hand brushing mine. His fingers are capable of such delicate tenderness and brutal control, a duality that I've come to crave. The darkness in him that once sparked fear now ignites a fire within me. "Dagon," I whisper, turning slightly to face him amidst the ritual. Our eyes lock, and there's a silent understanding that passes between us, a mutual recognition of the journey we've endured to stand here together. He leans closer, his breath warm against my cheek. "Kalista," he murmurs back. The sound of my name on his lips sends a shudder through me. From the moment you took me, I've battled with the reality of what we are, what this means. "And what have you decided we are, Kalista?" His question hangs in the air, and for a moment I lose myself in the depths of his dark eyes. "We are an inevitability," I reply. "We are the chaos of the storm and the peace of the aftermath." When the ceremony reaches its peak, the elder calls upon us to seal our vows with a token of our bond. Dagon reaches into his cloak, producing a small, intricately carved box. He opens it to reveal 2 rings, forged from the rarest metals on Galmoleth. As he slides the ring onto my finger, his other hand lightly caresses the nape of my neck, fingertips pressing just enough to remind me of that first potent encounter. My breath hitches, and I'm transported back to the alley, to the fear and exhilaration, the beginning of everything. "Who do you belong to?" Dagon's voice is a whisper now, filling the chamber, heavy with authority and desire. "You," I respond, my voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Only you." His eyes soften for a moment, the harsh lines of his face relaxing as he leans in, his breath warm against my ear. His thumb traces a gentle line over my pulse, where my heartbeat races under his touch. "I belong to you," he asserts, his declaration not of submission, but of equal commitment. "And don't you forget it," he whispers, his tone both a command and a vow. The elder's voice booms through the chamber, deep and resonant, carrying the weight of centuries. His eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light, fix on Dagon and me as he commands the final ritual to seal our bond. "Approach," he instructs, motioning us closer to the altar that stands covered in relics and symbols of ancient power. The stones beneath our feet whisper of old, forgotten magics as we step forward, hand in hand, facing each other with the elder between us. "Now," the elder continues, his voice echoing off the stone walls, "you must speak the words to each other, words that will bind your souls, declare your bond, your promises, and your dominion over each other." Dagon's eyes never leave mine, his gaze intense and unyielding. He takes a deep breath, and when he speaks, his voice is a soft growl filled with unspoken promises and dark, thrilling secrets. "Kalista," he begins, his hand coming up to gently cup my cheek, his thumb caressing the skin there. "I take you as mine. You are the chaos that matches my own, the fire that fuels my darkness. I vow to protect you, to dominate you, and to cherish the power you surrender to me. You are mine, as I am yours, bound by blood and soul." The intensity of his words sends a shiver through me, echoing the depth of our bond. I reach up, my hand finding his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my palm. "Dagon," I reply, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions whirling within me. "I accept your vow. I give myself to you, not out of weakness, but from the strength of my own will. You are the darkness I choose. I vow to stand by you, to challenge you, and to submit to the reign you hold over me. Together, we are bound." The elder nods solemnly as he observes our exchange, his eyes gleaming with ancient wisdom. "With these vows, you bind yourselves not only to each other, but to the fate you will share. Whatever may come, remember this moment, the words spoken, the promises made." He then turns to the gathered witnesses, raising his arms high. "I now pronounce you bonded mates." As his words settle over us, Dagon leans in, his hand moving from my cheek to wrap gently around my neck, his grip firm but affectionate. His lips meet mine in a kiss that seals our vows, a perfect melding of power and surrender. The room erupts around us, the cheers of demons celebrating our union. All I can feel, all I can know, is Dagon my demon, my mate, my chosen darkness.
In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Do you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The immersive fantasy audiobook bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.